All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Symptai Consulting Limited. And today we'll be talking about solution selection. And we're going to talk about it from a three-phased approach. All right. So in order to go through what we want to talk about today, the contents of our discussion are going to include a quick introduction. We're going to talk about the need in terms of what the objective of this particular presentation is. Then we're going to talk about the three phases that I mentioned at the beginning of the discussion. So let's get the boring stuff out of the way. Quick introduction about myself. I'm Stuart Hilton. I work at Symptai Consulting Limited and I'm the manager of advisory services. I currently have certifications in Certified Information Systems Auditor, Certified Security Fundamentals Nexus, Certified Information Security Manager, and Scrum Master Certified. My interests include football and reading. I'm not going to say I'm a great football player, but I do love the sport. It doesn't love me as much as I do. And I do enjoy reading some non-fictional books, philosophical stuff, etc. Okay, so let's get right into the meat of the matter. Okay, so the objective of what we're trying to do today is highlight some of the issues that occur when trying to implement a new system. And of course, solution selection itself can take many facets, including that of trying to find new resources, new people. So the objective of what we're going to focus mainly on solution selection from a implementation of new software in your business. The first image that you see on your screen here really highlights what are some of the issues that we have in the workplace today. So a lot of the times you'll find that companies have many disjointed systems. And the image on the screen kind of highlights that, because you can take, for example, the calculator to really be your business analysis type or data analysis type software, the clipboard to be your project management or your to-do list, your briefcase as the database where we have everything housed, your pencil for your note-taking systems or somewhere where we capture information, and of course the envelope to be your email, and the computer itself representing like your core system, your main system that you're trying to do multiple things from. If we have instances where it's not managed properly, or if it's not the right system for you, we have a lot of errors. And you find that your support staff, like your IT, is spending a lot of time just fixing problems rather than improving the business and finding better ways to do things. So, and of course, another thing in the current state is that it puts our staff under pressure. They're trying to do multiple things from multiple different systems, and it's causing chaos and reduction in productivity, etc. So we talk about future states. We're talking about trying to identify the kind of system that will reduce a lot of the systems that we have in terms of cutting back on the number of systems and consolidate some of the work. So if you notice, we've gotten rid of the calculator, we've gotten rid of the clipboard, we now have a notebook, we have a computer which captures probably your core system and it integrates with your email, updated database, and happier employees. And as you can see from things like the chart, that we're getting some business insight. So a lot of the time nowadays we're trying to find that one solution which houses everything and can do everything. And in some instances it may not exist, which is why we still have some separate systems apart from our core system, but we can find ways nowadays to integrate some of our what could be consider our subledger applications or subsystems into our core system, which gives the seamless movement of data from one point to the other. And of course, improving employee satisfaction and their work balance and the productivity that they may have. So we talk about the need continued, and of course, we want to have a structured approach to identifying and selecting a new system and making sure that we implement it properly. So when we talk about the need, we find that there are a lot of times where implementing the wrong solution can lead to numerous costs. It may not lead to all of the costs listed on the screen here right now, but it can lead to many different costs. And of course, each cost individually can be a lot, but when you put them all together, you can find that it will balloon way out of control. And we've seen companies here in Jamaica where they may go and implement a new solution and find that their initial expectation in terms of the budget was just for selecting and implementing a new solution. And then when some of these issues come up, when they end up having to spend to fix them, the entire project ends up costing them double, triple, 10 times more than what they expected to pay. And it may not just be small companies that may not have the resources to try to implement a solution correctly, but even major companies. There have been instances with companies such as Nike, HP, so on, that have gone and implemented the wrong solution or not implemented the right solution for them in terms of following a structured approach, and ends up leading to things like opportunity costs, loss of sales, in some instances even litigation, and we're talking about in hundreds of millions of dollars. So just to highlight some of the costs that we see here on the screen, of course, one of the first ones that come to mind is replacement cost. What is the cost to actually replace the system after you've implemented it? So you're talking about both the cost of implementing your current system as well as replacing it when you realize that it's not the right system for you. And of course, people may ask, how do companies end up implementing the incorrect solution to begin with? And as we go through, and when we get to the phases, I'll highlight some of the pitfalls that occur. But of course, we sometimes get caught up in the idea of implementing something new because we believe that's the right thing to do, and we see something that looks pretty. The vendor sells us exactly what we want to hear. We buy it, implement it, and then find out that there are some missing parts, or there's a lot more things that need to be added or done in order to make it the right solution for us. So therefore, we can talk about things like customization cost. Because the vendor has sold us the dream situation, not without highlighting exactly what needs to be done to get it there, they can implement a solution for us and then say, well, here's the cost of all the add-ons that you spoke about wanting. And without us realizing, we're now paying for customizations because their core system did not include it initially. This can then lead to things like your upgrade cost. Did we buy the right version of a software? We go out and we buy a system, implement it, take it right off the shelf, implement it, not realizing that there are newer versions available that may better meet our needs. And a lot of the other costs on the screen are pretty self-explanatory, but I'll talk about things like unknown requirements, where the companies may put together a quick team in order to put together a list of requirements that they might believe they need, but not really capture all the requirements of what they actually need, and end up starting the implementation process with a solution that doesn't meet all their needs, and then they identify those needs as they're implementing. So then they end up in a situation trying to patch or include some of those new requirements. And a lot of the times you'll see the missing requirements for things like future state, because we end up with a lot of these disjointed systems because we buy a core system not realizing that it may not have some of the subsystems that we need already built in, and we end up buying additional systems in order to try to connect and have these manual processes to move information from one system to the next. And those then balloon out of control, and we haven't really done the right capacity planning. So of course, these things come up as unknown requirements that make themselves obvious to us as we're building out our system. And of course, some of the very obvious things are your loss of time, loss in opportunity. Customer perception comes into play when you may have implemented a new system that then impacts your customer directly because of the experience that they may have on the other end. And even from a standpoint of how they interact with your employees, and your employees not being able to meet their needs as the system does not give them everything that they need in order to satisfy the customer. All right, so at a high level, and I want to put a little disclaimer here just to note that solution selection can come with many phases. And in doing some research on this in the past, I've seen outlines or processes that say anywhere from 2 to 10 different steps or phases that you can go through. And of course, these phases will come with multiple different sub-steps or activities that you need to perform. In order to simplify and due to the amount of time that we have for this presentation, I've condensed it into 3 main phases, and we'll have 3 main steps for each one. And of course, I'll try to highlight as much as possible any additional steps that you may need. And of course, as persons ask questions, they can point out some more things that they use to help determine what is the best way to select a solution for them. But do not feel limited to what's here. But the point is that we need to make sure that we have a structured approach to identifying our needs, justifying those needs, selecting the right solution for us, and then making sure that we implement it properly. So the first phase, we talk about justify. And again, we've limited this to just 3 main points that I believe are very crucial to making sure that we get a successful project off the ground. So the first thing is that we, of course, identify that we have a need, and we need to analyze those needs. Is it that we're having a problem? Is it that we're having a problem that can be fixed with existing resources, or is it something that we need to start considering changing the process altogether? So we take the time to make sure to document and analyze our needs. We can do things like creating a business case or doing a feasibility study, some process re-engineering to try to identify, is the case that we can be more efficient in a particular process or business area, or is it that we just need to we just need to improve upon what we're doing individually. That leads to gathering requirements, and this of course is going to be something that guides the entirety of your solution selection process. So one of the most crucial things you need to do is make sure that you're documenting and gathering the right requirements to meet your business needs. With this comes things like identifying the right people. So dependent on what you're trying to improve, you have to make sure you select the right team of persons that will give you the information you need in order to gather the right set of requirements. And this team should come from all aspects of the business that will be impacted by implementing a new system or by trying to improve your existing system. Companies take it for granted that you have to get your end users involved. And your end users are the persons who are all the way at the end of the system entering data. Those are the persons who are using it day in, day out. And they are the ones that can tell you some of the things that are missing from a entry-level perspective, which causes lack of insights when you get all the way to the management and executive level. So make sure that your team comprises of the various aspects of the business that will be impacted. And this, in order to keep consistency, you should have these persons involved in every step of your process. And your requirements gathering can take many forms. You can do things such as having brainstorming sessions, workshops. You can send out surveys. You can do individual interviews. But the point is to meet with all the members of this team in various ways and gather from them all the requirements, which are literally your quote unquote ability to do X, ability to do Y, and document all those together, rank them to identify which needs are more important than others. And of course, if you want to do quantitatively, you can add a score to say, those with the highest need get a 5. Those with the lowest need get a 1. Middle needs can get a 3. For example, you can use different scoring metrics, but you want to be able to identify which particular requirements are the ones that you have to have in your system moving forward, and those that are more of a nice to have and probably very future state. And then you want to compare with your current state. And remember, I had the earlier diagram where we showed a young lady who was surrounded by multiple systems, and it was just chaos for her. So in your evaluation of your current state, you want to take your existing systems that are trying to provide the process that you're trying to replace, and you need to evaluate those different systems, or in some cases it may just be one, and identify the gap between your current state and where you want to be in terms of your documented requirements. So it's important to note, don't try to document your requirements based on the future state, based on the current state, and do it, of course, on your future state. Because if you're doing it based on your current state, you may end up in a situation where you're just bringing back a similar system to what you already have, and then you don't have the capacity and resource planning that you want for the future state of your business. When we get to the second phase where we talk about select, of course, this is the meat of what we're really talking about. But again, making sure that you're carrying those requirements that you've documented previously forward to your selection phase. You want to make sure that you do your market research, get an understanding of what is out there. This, of course, can be done in many ways. One of the easiest and most straightforward things to do is Google. Go online, start to search for exactly what start to search for the kind of system that you're looking for. And this market research can reveal many things. For example, here at Symptai, we had a few disjointed systems with our project management, where we're using multiple systems to do project management, time management, billing, and expenses. And we realized that we need to have one way of being able to streamline from start to finish our entire project process. Initial research, we started looking for a project management solution, not knowing that the market had available in what's called professional services automation, which gives you your start to finish of your entire project management and service management portfolio, all the way from your marketing and sales down up to your billing and invoicing. So that market research can reveal many things. One, whether there's a solution out there that could potentially meet your need, and two, whether what you're trying to do even exists. Because in some instances, we may believe that we can implement, for example, a core banking system that gives us all of our banking processes, as well as the financial reporting aspects. And then we may find it lacks in particular aspects of our financial reporting. And then we still end up in a situation where we have to get a core banking system and a financial reporting system separately, but we want to make sure that they integrate. From that research, another way that you can do your market research is ask competitors. Speak to other persons who are in the same field and get an understanding of what it is that they use to manage similar processes. We take it for granted that sometimes our competitors may actually have the best thing in there for them, and they could potentially work for us as well. So that can be a starting point in terms of identifying some of the solutions that exist. Then we want to shortlist our vendors. So based on the market research we've done, we put together a comprehensive list of all the vendors. We can do an initial evaluation at a high level to understand, here are some of the things that we need to have in place, and here are some of the things that these vendors offer. Here are some of the things that the vendors don't offer based on what we've done. And you immediately start to shortlist your target set of vendors. Depending on the size of the project, you may want to reduce it all the way down to 10 potential vendors. You can do more if you have a bigger team, but if your time is short and you need to implement something soon, then it's better to shortlist a more manageable list. From that initial evaluation and shortlist of a vendor, of course, depending on the value of what you're trying to do, you might want to send out your RFP, your RFQ, do a comparison, do things like vendor demonstrations, where the vendor is showing you exactly what you're trying to get. And a very important part of the vendor demonstration is to make sure that you control what your vendor is showing you. Remember, software vendors, especially big ones, are used to demonstrating their products based on what they believe customers want to see. One of the things that you want to do is to develop a demonstration script based on your initial set of requirements and based on what they would have responded to in your RFP, and ask them to demonstrate specifically those items. And if they cannot show you one of the items that you've requested, that means their system either cannot do it or they don't know how to do it. They will come, of course, with the pre-packaged, here's all the bells and whistles of what the solution can do. Yes, it can do everything you need it to do. And if they can, but in the demonstration not be able to show you, you can end up implementing the system on the belief that it can do it and find out that it doesn't actually do what you want it to do. So always take the time to control what your vendors are showing you. Ask the questions, control the demonstration, and make sure they give you exactly what you need. And from your demonstrations and your evaluations of their responses in your RFP, you can come up with another score to identify what is the best fit. Of course, putting together all the metrics based on the different requirements and your scores for the vendor demonstrations to come up with a quantitative way of saying this particular solution should meet our needs. And of course, if you come up with one solution on top based on your quantitative scores, if the team gets together and says, but at the end of this, we believe that the person ranked number 3 does give us exactly what we want based on these different aspects, and we feel most comfortable based on the interaction we've had with the vendor so far, then you can determine that we have a justified means of picking something else over the one that comes out on top in terms of the scores. But of course, that has to be a business decision based on consensus, and not just something that people say just based on how I feel. You can do things like include financial analysis into the company. Look at the vendor and say, but what have their financials been over the past 3 to 5 years? Is it the kind of company that we know will have longevity? So if we are investing in them being with us for the next 10 years, will they be with us for the next 10 years, or is it a company that may collapse? So you can take different aspects and you can take different things into consideration as you recommend your best fit. And from here, we do the implementation. I include implementation because, of course, to make sure that we have gotten the best system and we're now using the best system, we need to make sure that we've done the correct implementation. And the correct implementation means that we're a part of that implementation process by making sure that we've performed our user acceptance testing, make sure it's satisfactory, and the right person has signed off before we move it into production. And we also do project management. The example I gave earlier in terms of Nike, Nike had an instance where they were implementing a new ERP system, and the project wasn't managed properly. It was a major ERP system, cost them hundreds of millions of dollars to implement, and it just wasn't implemented on time, therefore leading to loss of sales. And from what I read on CIO.com, they had a loss of approximately $100 million in sales. So you have to make sure that you are a part of the implementation process. Don't let the vendor dictate to you that they manage and do everything for you. You sit back and relax, and you're not a part of it, because if anything goes awry, you won't know until it has already gone awry. Make sure, and this is a key part of implementing your system, making sure that you've utilized an adoption strategy set forward before you began your project. And that might have been a part of your business case to say, what right now is the usage of our current system, and what do we want the usage to be in our future state? And persons tend to go out, buy a great system, and it may actually be a great system, but because they did not get the buy-in from their end users when they're doing implementation, end users come to work day in, day out and never use the system. I got to a client where they were adamant that they needed a new financial reporting system, said that their current financial reporting system didn't do everything they needed. When we took a look at it and did the assessment, the system did do everything they need. The problem they had is that no one wanted to use it. So they were about to spend millions of dollars to implement a new system because they believed that it didn't do what they wanted when it actually did, but persons just were not interested in using the different features within the system. And that all came down to under the root analysis that they were never trained on how to use it. So persons would open the system, look at what's there, get confused, and close it. So there was never a training. So make sure that there's an adoption strategy to help improve the acceptance of the system and the usage of the system when it's in production. And that can include things like making sure you do adequate training and making sure that you have things like user champions, persons who come into work every day and encourage persons to use it, give them incentives to use it and adopt it properly. And of course, last but very, very much so not least, make sure to conduct your post-implementation review. And this post-implementation review is to make sure that you have implemented and gotten everything that you're expecting to get from your system. A simple approach to doing your post-implementation review is having a checklist of items that you said are going to go into place, which is usually in your business case, of what your future state should look like, and check and evaluate your system based on that. Your business case would already have had things like your expected return on investment. Has that been realized? You also want to make sure that you have your usage numbers. Are we using it as much as we'd expected? Also, has it improved the things that we expected to improve. So if your productivity was low previously, has your productivity now increased over the period of time that you expected it to take? So this post-implementation review, of course, can reveal some of the things that you might need to change moving forward. And that could go back to, retraining individuals. Does this system really provide coverage of all of what we need to cover? Are there some new requirements that we really just never identified? So your post-implementation review is critical in making sure that you now have the system that you want to have. All right, so we do thank you for your time today, and for those persons who have been able to tune in and listen. We will be posting the video to Facebook later, so it will be available for anyone who wants to watch it later, or if you want to share it with anyone. So thanks again for your time, and hope to hear from you soon.